Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. We are ready to approach our next module, Module 8. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Okay, so now in Module 8, effectuation, bird in the hand and affordable loss for this module. And when we take a look at our objectives and overview, we can see that we are continuing to work on identifying and creating value for others and recording them in a journal. That is our assignment for these few modules. And the next one is identify the principles of effectuation and describe their importance. We have our module level objectives here that align with the course level objectives. We have our activities that we'll be going through today. Also, here are the assignments, and I'll briefly go over those as well. So let's go ahead and see where we are. With the bird in the hand resources that we're starting with here, well, I have a brief video here for you to take a look at. Please go ahead and you can stop at 1:55 seconds at that, and then he goes into some other information that doesn't pertain. But the first part of it, the first 1:50 seconds, really pertains to the bird in the hand. I think you'll find it entertaining. All right, so as far as the slide deck, let's go ahead and get started with that. Okay, so here, effectuation, we're starting with the bird in the hand. It covers several areas. We're going to go over each of those areas. But the bird in the hand is really all about, having something you already have of value. The other components of effectuation are affordability loss, crazy quilt, and lemonade, and we will cover those separately. Here's an overview model of the effectuation diagram. So there's a lot to see here. It's sort of like a stylized eyeball, and there are many different things going on. So we end up over here with change in the environment. That could be any part of the environment within our business. And so it's affected by many different things. So here we can have a change in mean, which the means are over here. We're going to go over the means today. And it can also have a change in constraints. And the constraints are new goals and interactions. Again, tying in with the means here, what you can do, what you know, and also we have new means that are tied into the goals interactions as well. This moves along from the goals and the interactions over to stakeholders' commitment, and you can form new goals or new means from this section. This also applies to maybe no commitment, which means the opportunity is on hold, and we may need to perhaps pivot into another business model. Also, we have new firms, products, and markets. That's really what we're looking into moving along. All right, so let's break this down so we can make sense of this. An expert entrepreneur. So you want to remember this. When we look at the traditional way of thinking of arriving or providing for a goal, we think of causation, a predetermined goal. Here's the goal we want to work towards. And we are oftentimes strategically thinking of creative causal reasoning, right? We're looking at what means can we generate to, or can we apply to reach our goal? Whereas with effectuation, it starts with the mean. And here we have many different means, but we have many different goals. Instead of one goal, we have many imagined goals. So this is the basis of the effectual reasoning. And what you want to do is just imagine different possibilities and not just one end goal. So here, effectuation starts with the mean as its focus instead of the goal as its focus. So now let's look at the principles of effectuation. Here we have bird in hand is something you already have. We have affordable loss, which minimize your costs, right? So you want to minimize whatever losses you may have. Crazy quilt is forming partnerships. And lemonade is embracing surprises and events that don't work out the way you planned. So right now we're going to be working in bird in hand, but we're going to go into depth in these other areas. So the old proverb, a bird in a hand is worth two in a bush. I think you'll enjoy the video that I have there. Please go ahead and stop at the 1.55 minute mark because that's all that is included for bird in the hand. But it is interesting to see how the one bird in the hand is worth two in the bush and how that is measured. Okay, so when we look at, really the advantages of a means-driven mindset, we're not really chasing down resources that are difficult to obtain, such as large amounts of money for a business. Oftentimes, you may have to do many hundreds of pitches before you can obtain funds that you need. And it is not necessarily impossible, but made difficult. So when you already have a good opportunity, perhaps that is the better way to move forward, right? So you don't have to really necessarily wait for the perfect opportunity. And if you do wait for that perfect opportunity, it may not ever come, or it may take a very long time to come. And it's better to just move it along rather than waiting for it to be perfect, right? It's like when I was completing my doctoral dissertation. If I waited for the dissertation to be absolutely perfect, I would have never finished it. So basically here with that means-driven mindset, you're discovering your preferences, your true preferences as an entrepreneur. You're increasing your probability for maybe surprises, lucky breaks, but you are increasing those opportunities. So what you're going to be focused on for the means is who I am, what I know, and who I know. Those are the three areas. So here, when you think about who I am, we're all made up of different personalities, and our personalities are a web of different components. So, you yourself are, you may have one personality or one stream within a personality realm. It is wonderful to have a diverse team and have other personalities that complement each other. So what is the result of that? You generate more options. You have more opportunities to create value, and you certainly can be more creative. You will wind up being more objective when you have a diverse team, which will certainly help you to analyze and get through difficult situations. And you're less likely to suffer from groupthink when you have a diverse team. If everyone is the same and thinking along the same lines, then you may get trapped into that groupthink realm. Whereas with a diverse team, that rarely happens. And so you bring complements to each other rather than duplicating skills. So the psychological capital of who I am, we want to think of this as, throughout your life. Let me just show you a visual here. We look at hope, self-efficacy, and what is self-efficacy? So you want to remember that. Optimism and resilience. There's also motivation and interests. Your mindset, whether it's a growth or a fixed mindset, we like to have a growth mindset so that when we have small failures or stumbling blocks along the way, we can move forward, we grow from it, we learn from it, and we go beyond instead of a fixed mindset that gets stuck when you make a mistake or you feel you've failed in something, and then you're in that fixed mindset where you don't learn and grow from it. And then your personality. So here's one way to think of the 5 dimensions of personality as the acronym OCEAN, right? Openness to new experience, Conscientiousness, so being organized and detailed oriented. Extroverted or introverted, right? So there is no right or wrong. There are extroverts and there are introverts. And it's good to have that's a good, if you are introverted, it's good to have a team of others that would, at least one person would be extroverted to help round out your team. Agreeableness, neuroticism, and being emotionally stable. So certainly I've done my doctoral dissertation on emotional intelligence, and all our decisions or all our major decisions are based on emotions, right? We've decided how do we feel about a situation, not what do we think about it. Okay, now what I know, right? We want to think about our intellectual capital for, who I am. It's, who are you as a personality? Who I know are what do you know, and what is your intellectual capital, and how can you gauge that? Well, certainly from previous work experiences, perhaps a knowledge of specific industries. Some of you may be in a family business and learned an enormous amount from being exposed to that, or being exposed to any type of environment, your educational experiences, any type of hobbies you might have. It may be advice from mentors, which is fantastic to have some type of a mentor. When you're in business for yourself, you always want to reach out to someone that can help you, that knows more than you in that business, and that can help you to grow your business. Learning from trial and error also helps you with your intellectual capital. So what skills, I mean, here you take this perfect example here of Steve Jobs, and who is this here? Right, so his original partner. Certainly Jobs had really not many technical skills. He was the extrovert. He was the salesperson, where his partner was more of a technical guy, right? So having a good team balance to get things completed. Here's another company as an example here is Echo Envelopes. This person, she came from a graphic design background. So that was her area, that was her knowledge space, and wanted to do something that was sustainable. And she came up with this idea of reusing envelopes. And so think about what you know that can help you with your business idea. And then another thing about who you know is the next category here of means. And so we all know, well, not we all, but many of us know about Stanley Milgram's small world experiment, the 6 degrees of freedom. And there was, I don't have that in here. Okay, so there was an actor that went into went and actually read Stanley Milgram's information and implemented to see, is there really only 6 degrees of separation between all of us? And then that turned out to be the case, which was a very interesting real life, Kevin Bacon, it was that ran that experiment. Okay, here. So, as far as means at FGCU, if, right now think about where are all the places that you can go and what you can do, all the things that you can do, expand your means at FGCU. There are many places you can go and things you can do. So something to think about to help you along the way. This also kind of ties in with our journal. So you can think about how this would tie into your journal. Okay, and then who I know as far as social capital, right? So you have strong ties. What are strong ties? Really, they are relationships that you have that are strong relationships. They are people you know well, good support systems, but they're usually poor for offering different opinions because oftentimes they will be agreeable with you. So that is something to consider when you're looking at social capital. Weak ties, the relationships are not as well known. They may not be good friends or associates, but they are associates, people you know, and they may be more willing to provide you with more of a I would say a non-biased opinion. Okay, something where they're not afraid to give you the truth of the answer. So think about that. How, you know, who I know. Also, again, networking is a wonderful way to build relationships. And I found myself in wonderful networking situations where I didn't know anyone at all. I walk in by myself, and then I just start speaking with people. And again, one person may know someone else, and all of a sudden we realize we know each other through other people, and it can be a very exciting and interesting situation. And we can also, I've developed partnerships in networking situations where they can help me with my business and I can help them with theirs. So a wonderful way to network and meet other people. Here's a quote by Ronald Reagan: "Surround yourself with the best people you can find, delegate authority, and don't interfere." What? Don't interfere. You know, you want to, if you have employees, you want to make sure that they can have some level of autonomy. Delegate your authority to them, don't interfere, let them run with it. So here, mapping out your means, you want to think about who you are, what you know, and who you know. Be a good idea to map this out to help you through your career endeavor. All right, and then I will show you some other ways to move along there in the next section for affordability loss. All right, so let's just take a look at the affordability loss resources. So here I have a brief video here on Richard Branson's and how he speaks about affordability loss, kind of humorous there. Here is Tim Urban inside the mind of a master procrastinator. Here he also speaks about affordability loss as well. And make note of the end of the presentation. He makes a very pointed argument about how it is important not to procrastinate. So I think you'll enjoy those. Let's go ahead and go back to the module. So now we're on the affordability loss slide deck. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. Okay. So we spoke about expert entrepreneurs and the principal effectuation, the bird in the hand we just went over, and now we're working on affordability loss. We'll go into Crazy Quilt next and then Lemonade after that. So there are two steps, the two-step process of affordability loss, because really ask yourself these questions. How much do I really need to get started in a business? And especially when you have a business in mind. And what are you really able and willing to lose in that business? I'm going to go into that a little bit here. So certainly there are different starting points. If you take the situation here, we have an example, John or Jane Doe, and they are investing 10% of their monies. They are, they have an investment of $10,000 and net worth of $100,000. They, whereas you look at Mark Cuban, if he's investing the same amount of money, $10,000, his net worth is $3.3 billion. His percentage is very small. All right, so we can see that there's a huge difference here. And whereas a $333,000 Jane and Joe is equivalent to $1 to Mark Cuban's $10,000 investment. So, you know, it depends on where, you know, the percentage of where it's coming from. Oftentimes, startup entrepreneurs are in this place. Certainly, many of the startup entrepreneurs on Shark Tank are in this Jane and Joe, John and Jane Doe's predicament where they don't have a lot of money and they've come to the sharks for money. And here where Mark Cuban, $10,000 is not a lot for him to invest if he likes the idea. But even so, given this, like even $10,000, 10% of your net worth, that's still quite a bit of money. And are you willing to give that up? Or would you be willing to let that money go? We want to, here at FGCU in the School of Entrepreneurship, we are really focused on lean startup. So we want to start up our businesses as lean as possible. So here we start with, when we think of ourselves starting with no money down or very little money down, we really want to focus on customer development first, because we want to make sure that our idea that we have customers that are willing to pay for it. So we want to speak to those potential customers and test the market plausibility. Here, if we start the business next, right? So we want to make sure we have our customer development in place. Then we actually start and form the business. It could cost us maybe $1,000 to start a business. It could cost us $10,000. It may cost us a lot more. There's no actual set amount of startup costs. It just depends on the business itself. But we do need to do certain things to start a business. Legal forms, maybe perhaps there's licensing that you need to apply for, creating and purchasing products to sell or manufacturing. So again, I mentioned there's no uniform startup fee for a business. It depends on the business itself. However, you can expect to spend some money, and here are some of the items that you would need to invest in when you do start a business, when you're actually implementing the business. So some typical costs are licensing permits, legal fees. Certainly, I always recommend hiring an attorney early on to get a 30-minute, 60-minute free consultation with an attorney prior to, have a list of questions you're ready to ask that attorney so that you're prepared and get as much free legal advice that you can. But you do want to have an attorney available to you to address legal issues. Certainly, you may need some supplies to start the business. You may have some other operating expenses, equipment. Maybe you need office space. If you can't work from your home or your garage, you may need some space. Or if you have a cafe, you need that space. Employees and contractors may be something you may not need right away, but in time. So here's a thought here. Imagine you had $100,000 today that you could afford to lose, and that would be used to start a business. What business would you start? What would you do? If you had 100,000 that you could afford to lose, right? But now imagine that you only had $1,000 that you could afford to lose. What would you do differently? Right. So it's an interesting dilemma now for the same business idea too. So think about that. So we don't really want to start with investing immediately. We want to think about what we can do to minimize our losses or to minimize or to have a lean startup. I want to mention mental accounting. So really money is money regardless of whatever, where the source is from. Right now, you may have a windfall, some type of an inheritance. You may have found money. My son used to find money on the street all the time. I couldn't believe it. No matter where we went, he would be able to find money, $20 bills, $1 bills, didn't matter. He was always finding money. But that's a windfall, right? What about long-term savings? That's money also that you've put away over time. Maybe your family home, the equity in your home, there's monies there. Credit cards that are available for you, that's money that you haven't used. And money from investors. Right, so this is money. Sometimes when you're given a gift of money, oftentimes people will think, well, it doesn't have quite as much value because I didn't work for it. And people also have a tendency to value the money they work for more than other forms of money. So loans from family and friends is another. But no matter where the money comes from, it is still money. So we want to value the money the same. Now, when we think about mental accounting, we think like, okay, I have monies that are coming in from one source and maybe monies that are in another, like a savings account or something, but I can manage that money mentally for myself. Certainly I have it maybe on a spreadsheet or something, but I can also mentally think about where those funds are. Okay, risk tolerance. So we also want to think about, well, certain relative factors here. Perhaps an existing portfolio of investments, we might be able to tap into some of those funds, but we want to be careful that we don't want to lose our investments, right? Motivations, regulatory focus, these are all relative factors and areas of risk. So not being ready today really doesn't mean that it won't be ready in the future. So we want to think about our level of risk tolerance and willingness to lose. So certainly when many entrepreneurs sort of moonlight or they do part-time work and to get things rolling for themselves. Oftentimes students will start a business while they're still living at home because they don't have the expense of an apartment or all the other factors that go into maintaining your lifestyle, and or they will have a full-time job and start a business as a part-time job. So 30% of businesses actually start part-time and build over time, because it's difficult to just say, oh, I'm going to quit my job, I'm going to start this new business and then have income right away. It oftentimes doesn't work out that way. Oftentimes takes years to become self-sufficient in that business. So certainly being under regulatory focus, being prevention focused, you want to think about your goals, meeting those responsibilities, right? View goals as meeting responsibilities. So when you say, well, I have this goal, I'm going to be responsible to meet that goal. Focus on the downside potential, right? These are all prevention focused. You're thinking about focusing on, well, what is the downside potential of this business venture or what I'm doing within this business. You work to avoid failure. So can you see how this mindset is focused on prevention, carefully planning, taking few chances, and whereas the promotion focused view is really focused on the rewards of achievement, and then the other ends that I have listed here. So differing mindsets are just, different, not just entrepreneurs thinking about gains and losses in all aspects of life. What about losing time, opportunity cost? We touched on opportunity cost in the last module here, but when we think about, time or money spent on a specific item that could have been spent on something else, right? So, and so what are some of the good ways that we can manage that opportunity cost? We can learn maybe transferable skills, commit to decisions, and in incremental or increasing manner or sections, make decisions that can be reversible. Oftentimes that's not always the case. Sometimes we make a decision that cannot be reversed or that may have some consequences. So it is a good idea that I'd mentioned in the prior module is to think through your decision and what will the ramifications of the decision mean. And when you're looking at all your choices, think about the opportunity cost involved with each of those decisions. And think about how perhaps if you do go in one direction, can you pivot and move into another direction? Calculated focus. So here, Tiger Woods, certainly, again, tying into the last module, he certainly was one that was very disciplined in repetitive work, right? And so he's a calculating golfer who plays percentages and makes sure to err on the side of safety, according to Hank Henry. So working towards revenue and profitability, we want to think about what can we do? We can exercise sweat equity, right? We can get a lot of work done very inexpensively. So not focus so much on the monetary items. Think about the non-monetary value that we can do. You know, maybe sharing space with someone, maybe working on doing things that we're doing ourselves to get something done instead of hiring someone else to do the work. But ways that we can include sweat equity to not have to pay for that work or reduce the cost of that work. Some of the advantages of affordability loss principle is it sharpens your focus on your available means, right? It makes a difficult decision with many options seem a little bit more simple and straightforward. It also reduces the risk-taking involved. Ultimately sharpens your performance for doing a good job. I mentioned bootstrapping slightly, but here, let's talk about bootstrapping a little bit further in depth. It's creating value by, again, not using a lot of funds, right? So here, when you're working with suppliers, and here in customers, but working with suppliers, what can you do? Perhaps you can delay payment terms. You can pay as a percentage of revenue. And let's start with an idea here. Suppose you have someone who's working for you and doing maybe some social media work, and they are maybe selling or promoting your product, right? So perhaps you're using an influencer on social media, and instead of paying them to promote your product, perhaps you can give a percentage of the revenue instead. So anyone that they send in your direction, they would receive a percentage of the sale. So this is one way of thinking of bootstrapping and working lean. Suppliers investing in the business directly, that is another option. And working with customers. So, you know, getting your purchase order and then, you know, getting your lender to give you collateral for depends, certainly this is for large purchases. So you get the purchase order in hand. When you have a purchase order, you can go to a bank and you can ask for the money to be lent to you. Another way to think of this too as customers is getting half the money up front. You can purchase the item, and then when you supply the work and you've added to the value and you've presented it, then you collect the rest of the monies. So there are ways that you can think about bootstrapping and not have to put out all the funds yourself. Okay, working with employees also, you could have maybe a stock option rather than paying cash. That could be part of someone's work. Sometimes employees are more willing to stay with a company that has stock options. Paying a commission rather than a base salary. Some other options also, buying used equipment instead of new. Leasing equipment is another, coordinating purchases, maybe bulk discounts. And leasing, right, instead of bartering is another interesting way to work out business opportunities. So bootstrapping is just keeping things very lean and thinking of ways to start a business with very few funds. Sharing office space is another idea with employees or other businesses. And also, hiring interns is a great way as well. If you need marketing or social media help, hiring interns can be a great source. Starting a business from home can be another one. Of course, you want to check into zoning laws, depends on the type of business. All right, so we've completed that. Next, I just want to go into, you want to focus on your exam review worksheet. So module 8, we have quite a bit that encompasses module 8. So be sure to update that right away and have that ready to go for your exam 2. And then you have the Creators Code quiz, which is chapter 4 through 6. This is the essay question. I'm just going to go ahead and open it up for you. So before you open the quiz, please take a look at this and then go ahead and answer this question. I want you to have the time to answer this, and I don't want you to be pressured when you start the quiz without having thought this through and having a well-developed answer. So I never liked rushing an essay question on an exam or a quiz. So I prefer to provide you with the question in advance so you have an opportunity to think it through and answer that question. And then that same question will be in the Creators Code quiz. So when you open the quiz, you will see there are only 5 questions here. And there is a very nice video that I have here from Amy Wilkinson discussing the Creators Code book. So I think you'll enjoy that as well. All right, then we have the assignment that we're working on, the assignment 4, which is the Opportunity Journal. So just think about, as you're progressing in that journal, how anything, and it certainly, I don't expect you to include everything from this module, module 8. Just think of what you might want to include from module 8 that applies to your Opportunity Journal as you're doing those activities. All right, so that is it. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to me. Very happy to work with you. I can have a Zoom call with you, a telephone conversation, or if it's just through the messenger, that's fine too. Thank you.